This is the new BMW Neue Klasse, and this is the newly unveiled Neue Klasse X. Generally speaking, we don't pay too much attention to concept cars here at Fully Charged Show, but these are worth your attention, because together they showcase the radical changes that the new generation of BMW, or Neue Klasse, will bring when it arrives next year. And we're not just talking about new design language here. With the Neue Klasse, BMW is rethinking how a driver interacts with their car, how it goes about building an electric car, what it builds it from, and what happens to it when you are finished with it. In the words of a BMW spokesperson, Neue Klasse isn't just the next chapter, it's a whole new book. It's a big deal, is what I'm driving at. Are you getting that point? Am I putting that across? Here's what you need to know about BMW's Neue Klasse, aka the day BMW stopped half-arsing EVs and started whole-arsing them. Now, describing BMW's EV efforts to date as half-arsed might seem a little harsh. After all, this is a brand that blazed the trail with the i3 back in 2013 and to date has 7 electric cars in its lineup and 1 electric motorcycle, which together represented 15% of their global sales in 2023. But with the exception of the discontinued i3 and very expensive iX, all of BMW's electric vehicles have something in common. They're available as petrol cars too. The iX1, iX2, iX3, i4, i5 and i7 all have ICE-powered derivatives built onto the same platform. And while this is a common strategy used by many car brands to keep costs down and simplify production, it does hurt the EVs a little. An EV built onto an ICE car platform doesn't benefit from the extra cabin space afforded by not having an engine, for example. It can't use its battery pack as a structural component to reduce weight and improve handling. However good your electric cars are, if they're built on top of ICE car platforms, they're always going to feel a little bit compromised. And this brings us to the first piece of good news regarding the Neue Klasse, which is that these will be bespoke EVs, built from the ground up to be electric and electric only. And this should have a positive impact on just about everything, from legroom and turning circle to range, efficiency, weight, handling. And speaking of range, BMW are promising some seriously impressive numbers. They say that compared to their existing lineup of EVs, Neue Klasse models will offer 30% more range, 30% faster charging, and 25% more efficiency. For context, an entry-level BMW i4 is good for about 320 miles of real-world range. By those numbers, its Neue Klasse successor would have closer to 420. And what's really exciting to me is that it's going to achieve that additional range not by just having a bigger battery, but through clever design, improved aerodynamics, improved rolling resistance, optimized weight. And just a couple of extra geeky details for those interested. The Neue Klasse battery packs will utilize round lithium-ion cells, replacing the prismatic ones found in existing BMW batteries, which should allow for roughly 20% improved energy density, while the 800-volt architecture allows for much faster charging. More geekery in a second, but let's just quickly talk about design. To mark this new era, BMW has radically reimagined its design language for the Neue Klasse. To put it mildly, BMW design has been a little bit fiddly in recent years. To put it less mildly, they've been coming out with some The BMW iX and i7 are 2 of the most exquisite cars I have ever had the pleasure of driving, but good lord did it ruin my morning every time I left my house and saw that mush.
Brother, what's that?
I had to write apology letters to the neighbours. Happily, Neue Klasse will bring a more pared-down expression of BMW design language. Out with confusing lines and needless creases and in with smooth surfaces and simplicity. All while retaining the BMW hallmarks like the Hofmeister kink and the dual headlights, reimagined here as 2 vertical LEDs. I especially like the Neue Klasse Saloon's interpretation of BMW's iconic kidney grille, encompassing the whole width of the fascia as opposed to those buck teeth we saw in the i4, iX and i7. Design is of course completely subjective, and I'd be very interested to hear your thoughts about the Neue Klasse design in the comments. But for me, BMW design is at its best when it's purposeful yet understated. Google E39 BMW M5. You're welcome. And to my eye, the Neue Klasse looks like a long overdue return to those values. Moving now to the inside of the Neue Klasse concept, and there is a lot to talk about in here. The first thing you're likely to notice is that there are no physical buttons or switches anywhere on the dash. Instead, drivers will interact with their car primarily through multi-function buttons on the steering wheel and voice control, with less essential functions served through the gigantic central touchscreen. Now, truthfully, as someone who rather liked the fact that electric BMWs retain physical switches for important things like climate control, this is not exactly music to my ears, but I'll reserve judgment until I've had a go on it. What I do like the look of is the panoramic screen that stretches the width of the cabin and sits just underneath the driver's eye line, just below the bottom of the windscreen. This is super customizable with various widgets. It essentially replaces a conventional gauge cluster, and the idea is that this and a 3D heads-up display will provide the driver with all the information they actually need while driving, minimizing the amount of times you have to look down at that big central screen. Given how many toys and distractions modern cars come with, I really like this idea of just simplifying the experience and encouraging you, the driver, to keep your eyes on the road. Also of note is the lack of any wood or leather. Instead, the cabin of the Neue Klasse uses lightly coloured fabrics and lots of glass to create a sense of airiness. I really like the look of this textured material on the seats and this backlit woven material that makes up the dash. It reminds me in some ways of the Polestar Precept, in that it looks really high-end and premium while being unapologetically eco-friendly. But BMW has done much more here than just use some recycled C plastics to make the centre console. The three pillars of the Neue Klasse are electric, digital and circular, and this third one is perhaps the most significant thing about these cars. Because Neue Klasse cars will not just be built using recycled materials in a factory powered by green energy, they will also be designed and built in a way that makes them easy to disassemble and recycle at the end of their useful life. A lot of products that claim to be recyclable are actually very difficult to recycle, because doing so requires breaking them down into a million tiny pieces and then breaking each of those pieces down into its raw materials. It's a bit of a faff and it sort of defeats the point. Neue Klasse cars, however, much like the new Fisker Ocean, will be built with ease of disassembly in mind and use monoplastics, seen here in the side skirts for example, for maximum ease of recycling. For me, this is the sort of forward-thinking innovation that BMW proved it was capable of with the i3 and hasn't shown an awful lot of since. So, high-tech, efficient, long-range, recyclable, all good stuff. But let's be honest, the BMW boys are going to be much more concerned with something else. Is it still good to drive? BMW, after all, is a brand that has built its reputation on driving pleasure. And you'll be shocked to hear that the answer, according to BMW, is yes. In fact, they claim that the Neue Klasse is going to elevate the BMW driving experience by several notches. At this point, we come to a section of the press release which was a little bit too techie for my small brain, and I had to send it to Imogen for translation. I'll read it to you first. The BMW of the future will have 4 totally new super brains, high-performance computers working smartly together on what, up until now, was processed separately. We developed the first super brain in-house. It integrates the entire powertrain and driving dynamics with up to 10 times more computing power. The result will be more dynamic performance, more precision, more efficiency, and even more fun to drive. Now, truthfully, even Big Brain Bogues wasn't able to pull a huge amount of info from this, other than that it sounds like BMW are trying to make their EV architecture a little more tidy and reduce the number of ECUs. Exactly how this is going to result in increased driving pleasure remains to be seen, but one thing's for sure, Neue Klasse cars will be fast. As is BMW custom, rear-wheel drive and all-wheel drive variants of models will be offered, and the range will be topped with M cars. Not M Sport, full-blown M. We are used to hearing car brands claim that their next generation of vehicles will be game changers, but in the case of the Neue Klasse, it may not be an exaggeration. As a BMW fan, I am very excited to see these full-blooded EVs when they arrive next year, bringing back the sort of creativity and innovation we saw on the i3, the restrained design that BMW was once a master of, and introducing a groundbreaking approach to sustainability, all hopefully while still driving like a BMW. Do let us know in the comments what you make of BMW's Neue Klasse based on what we've seen so far, and what changes and features you'd like to see on the next generation of BMWs. Please make sure to like and subscribe, and if you have been, thanks for watching.